Good afternoon, it's 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and this is The Ambassador with me, your Ambassador Paul Mathenge, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Now, to our first story. 3 new cases of Ebola have been reported in Uganda, bringing the total number of confirmed cases to 12 since the outbreak began in late January. The outbreak, which has already claimed 2 lives, is now spreading across 5 districts. The World Health Organization and local authorities are intensifying efforts to contain the spread of the deadly virus. Irene Njuguna reports.
In a concerning update, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirmed 3 new Ebola cases in Uganda, bringing the total to 12 since the outbreak was first detected in late January. The new cases, part of a cluster recently identified, have prompted renewed fears as health officials race to contain the virus. Ugandan authorities had initially announced that the outbreak was under control in mid-February, but the resurgence of cases has highlighted the continued risk. The newly affected areas are now concentrated in 5 districts, with 2 fatalities already reported, including a 4-year-old child and a nurse. In response to the escalating crisis, the United Nations has launched a funding appeal for $11.2 million aimed at addressing the public health emergency. This appeal comes after the United States announced it will halt most of its humanitarian aid to Uganda. Tragically, there is no approved vaccine for the Sudan strain of Ebola, which is responsible for this outbreak. More than 15,000 people have died from Ebola across Africa in the past 50 years, a stark reminder of the ongoing threat that the virus poses to public health. Efforts to combat the disease continue, but the challenges remain immense. Reporting for GBS News, Irene Njuguna.
Amnesty International is calling on Senegalese authorities to ensure justice for victims of the violent 2021-2024 protest, which led to dozens of deaths and thousands of injuries. The organization is critical of a controversial amnesty law passed in March 2024, which protects security forces from prosecution for their actions during the demonstration. Triza Chengo reports.
Senegalese authorities are being urged to ensure justice, truth, and reparations for the victims of the violent suppression of protests between 2021 and 2024. Amnesty International has criticized the controversial amnesty law passed in March 2024, which shields security forces from prosecution for actions deemed criminal or offensive during the politically charged demonstration. The protests, triggered by the arrest of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko, led to at least 65 deaths, over 1,000 injuries, and thousands of arrests. Amnesty calls for the repeal of the law and accountability for security personnel involved in the unlawful use of force during these protests. In response to the violence, the government began offering financial support in 2024 to victims of arbitrary detentions and the families of those killed, but Amnesty argues that this support is insufficient without proper judicial accountability. While Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko pledged to abolish the amnesty law after securing a majority in 2024 legislative elections, Amnesty International emphasizes that true justice can only be achieved through the prosecution of those responsible for the abuses. The call for justice and the repeal of amnesty law remains a pressing issue for Senegalese authorities. Triza Chengo, GBS News.
South Korean court has ordered the release of impeached President Yoon Suk Yeol from jail, as reported. This decision was made by the Seoul Central District Court, allowing Yeol to face trial without being detained. He had been in custody since January, facing charges of insurrection related to his controversial declaration of martial law on December 3, 2024. Yoon's martial law declaration aimed to combat perceived threats from North Korea, but was quickly reversed amid public backlash. His arrest marked a historic moment, marking him the first sitting president in South Korea to be taken into custody. The court's ruling comes as Yoon's legal team has urged that the arrest warrant against him was invalid. The Constitutional Court is expected to soon decide on the legality of his impeachment. United States President Donald Trump has proposed a new travel ban that will affect citizens from Afghanistan and Pakistan. The citizens from the two Asian countries will be banned from entering the United States borders. This marks the second time Trump has banned Muslim-majority nations since 2018. Here is more on the scene.
The Trump administration has yet again stirred the global community. In a controversial move, Trump has planned to ban Afghanis and Pakistani citizens from entering the U.S. borders. The former Biden administration withdrew the travel ban due to the law discriminating a group of populations from a Muslim-majority country. This ban will also affect the 200,000 Afghani nationals who have been resettled in the U.S. following the Taliban takeover in 2021. Most of them are protected by the special immigrant visa as they face danger from the Taliban group due to working with the American military and intelligence agencies. Other countries are said to be included in the list of travel ban, though the Trump administration has not listed the nations to be restricted to enter U.S. borders. In 2023, Trump stated in his campaign trail that he wants to ban countries from Somalia, Libya, Yemen, Syria, and Palestinians.
Very rough people come out of those areas. They want to blow up our country. We aren't bringing in anyone from Gaza, Syria, Somalia, Yemen, or Libya, or anywhere else that threatens our security. But I will say this, tremendous numbers of people are pouring into our country right now. We have open borders. It's the stupidest thing anyone's ever seen.
With Trump planning to revert the travel ban, the question remains, is the travel ban a slap in the face for many Afghani nationals who are collaborating with the Americans to combat terrorism in the region? Is Trump's ban on Muslim countries a form of discrimination? This is Abdihamid Ali, GBS News.
The ambassador will take a short break. We will be right back with more as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics.
Hello, kids. Did you know a year has 31,557,600 seconds? Why do you think so? Exactly. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 365 and 20 days in a year. We count the extra 0.25 because of leap years. When you multiply all those numbers together, you get a huge number of seconds. That's why a year feels long, but time still flies when you are having fun.
What is always before you but can't be seen?
Kudiscover talent.
Kudiscover ulijuangaje like unaweza imba like yeah.
Kini Trace Jumi Kipchoge kwa ngoma na mfala wananidis na wanabonga kwa ngoma, mafanjo wananipenda ndo nazidi kwa roga, wenye walenjaribu mazee walishachoka na nikozabe meditation naendelesha generation niliofanya kalki.
Wewe at 1 year old ulikuwa unafanya nini? You're feeling the vibe. Ulitoa a few days ago, unaweza taka utuambie like ulikuwa unafikiria nini when you came up with the lyrics? Yeah.
So I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing. And if you're tryna win, you can be on my team. Yeah, so I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm tryna boss, let me do my thing.
You feel like you're young at heart, I'm an old soul. If you could only listen to one singer or band for the rest of your life, who will you choose?
And the question of the day is, can you survive without internet?
Ngumu, plus kwa chile hizo story tu zote zikupite ni ngori.
Niwaambie ukweli. Like hii ni kama kuambia mtu mwenye alikuwa amezoea kushindana nguo, mwambie toa nguo ushinde uchi. Hiyo huku ya tricky kwa sababu sasa like ilikuwa imekuingia kwa kichwa kabisa.
Sasa unaweza kaa holi ya bila simu.
Kuspend hii most of the time kwa simu. Also you need to run skills. So nilipatana na place hapa nikapo-apply huko. And then I started learning skills. Digital skills.
Yes, hadi siku mbili haiwezi.
Kwa wiki naachilia hata kama ni siku mbili ama sometimes na extend tu wiki nzima. Napata shiki simu yangu.
Water remains to be the world's most precious commodity, but is the most misused. In times of drought, saving water is the only solution to making sure you have it. Don't use the shower when water is scarce. Instead, use the basin while bathing. Repair all leaking taps and pipes. Wash your car only whenever necessary. If not, use a piece of cloth to wipe it clean. Do not use the hose pipe to water your garden. Instead, use the water you clean your vegetable with to water your flowers. Do not release wastewater into rivers. Note that your downstream is someone else's upstream. Of all the waters available on Earth, only 1% is fit for human consumption. Every drop counts.
Everywhere, GBS.
The number of people injured on an accidental bombing by South Korean fighter jet has risen to at least 29, including 14 soldiers. The bombs, which were unintentionally dropped outside the designated firing range during a joint live-fire drilling with United States forces, struck civilian homes and infrastructure in Pocheon City, northeast of Seoul. The incident has sparked widespread concern over the safety of military exercises, leading South Korea to suspend all live-fire drills and training flights across the country as authorities investigate the cause of the tragic mistake. Nigeria has unveiled new regulations to govern organ transplantation, aiming to curb ethical concerns and exploitation in the sector. The framework, announced by the country's health minister, prohibits organ sales and ensures transparency while aligning with international best practices. Paris Kigo with more.
Nigeria has launched a comprehensive standards and guidelines for organ and tissue transplants. The country's health minister said the new rules set out on Thursday aim to regulate a sector that has been plagued by ethical concerns and exploitation.
Getting the kidneys of pig is still at the experimental stage, but there has been a success story from using genetically altered pigs and transplanting them to living patient recipients. And of course, transplanting them to disease patients who are brain dead, but they are put on the ventilator.
He said the establishment of the framework underscored the federal government's commitments to saving lives through ethical organs transplant procedures. The minister added that for many, organ transplantation was not just a treatment, but a second chance at life. Nigeria's organ transplant system has been hampered by donor shortages, cultural issues, and weak laws that fuel ethical concerns and increase the risk of trafficking. The framework, which explicitly prohibits organ sales, seeks to establish transparency and adherence to international best practices. The new framework aims to ensure ethical, transparent, and life-saving organ transplant procedures in Nigeria. Peris Kigo, GBS News.
European leaders held an emergency summit at Brussels with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The main agenda of the summit is to increase defense spending and provide military aid to Ukraine. The push for increasing Europe's defense spending is motivated by fear of Russian aggression. Abdi Hamid Ali has more.
European leaders gathered at Brussels to discuss about key issues relating to the war in Ukraine and future risk regarding Russia. The leaders are united in standing up for Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, following Trump paused in providing military aid for Ukraine. The European leaders fear that the war will shift in Russia's favor following Trump abandoning Ukraine.
Gives the member states possibility to invest in the Ukrainian defense industry or to procure military capabilities that go right away to Ukraine.
We made a strong signal to Ukrainian people, to Ukrainian warriors, to civilians, to all our families, and it's great that we are not alone. We feel it and we know it. Thank you so much for everything.
The European leaders are also planning to increase their defense budget to deter Russia from ever attacking Europe following its invasion of Ukraine. Europe fears that Russia attacking Ukraine might motivate Russia to invade other European countries. French President Emmanuel Macron has stated that he plans to extend nuclear protection for other European countries as a way to deter Russia from conducting future invasion.
It's a very interesting idea, and we see to this proposal with high expectations because, nuclear umbrella would serve as really very serious deterrence towards Russia.
With Europe on a defensive mode, the question remains: how will Europe fare well with the lack of US support? One thing is clear: the European leaders are united, and as the saying goes, unity is strength. This is Abdi Hamid Ali, GBS News.
Zimbabwe officially applied to join BRICS, aiming to strengthen economic cooperation and global partnerships. Foreign Minister Amon Mururu announced the bid in Moscow, emphasizing Zimbabwe's commitment to the bloc's principles of mutual respect and sovereignty. The nation now awaits a response as BRICS continues to expand its influence. Peris Kigo has more.
BRICS is one of the most important platforms for economic cooperation that is based on principles of mutual respect and sovereign equality of nations. Therefore, Zimbabwe would benefit from any system that respects these key principles of human interaction and human progress, and BRICS is one of them. And we are in the process of making sure that we meet the required conditions by BRICS, and of course, we are applying. We will be waiting for a reply that is according to the consensus that will be in BRICS.
And that's all for today with me, your Ambassador Paul Mathenge, on the Ambassador 1 p.m. Follow all of our stories at GBS TV Africa. It's updated throughout the day. This is where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. Thank you for your time and company.